well as the Q1 expenditure release for financial year 2022-23. The objective is to provide you with an overview of the state of the economy, then the releases which we have made to the institutions in the first quarter of this year, and guidance which we have given to accounting officers on the execution of the budget for this financial year. I will start with the state of the economy. As you know, our overarching goal as government of Uganda now is to transform the economy of Uganda. And in that, we want to ensure that every Ugandan benefits from this transformation. To achieve this, as government, beginning this financial year, we are kick-starting the process of getting households that are still stuck in subsistence into the money economy. And two, to support businesses and the overall economy to recover first from the COVID-19 impact, but also from other emerging shocks, which we all know about, including the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has led to international economic shock, so that we can be able to restore the jobs as well as livelihoods of people. As at the end of June this year, the size of the economy was projected at 162.1 trillion shillings. This translates into $45.7 billion. And in per capita terms, that is $1,046 per person. This is the result of prudent economic policies that have enabled the recovery in economic activity, leading to the economy to grow at 4.6%, up from the 3.5% which the economy grew at in financial year 2020-21. There was continued recovery, and still is, in wholesale and retail trade, in education, tourism services, real estate activities, ICT, agriculture, manufacturing, and construction services. There was also increased revenue collection, especially in the second half of the financial year. We are reporting that. That's last financial year. As a result, revenue collected was a total of 21.7 trillion shillings, leading to a modest shortfall of 707 billion shillings against a projected shortfall which we had thought we are going to face of 939 billion. So we got a surprise in revenue collection because of this strong recovery. This modest but impressive performance under the circumstances was dampened by the significant increase in the prices of some essential commodities and services, especially soap, laundry soap, fuel, cooking oil, some food crop items, education services, and building materials. As a result, monthly headline inflation increased from 2.7% in January 2022 to 6.8% by the time we ended the year in June 2022. However, annual headline inflation for the entire financial year rose to 3.4% from 2.5% the previous financial year. So the annual inflation is relatively lower than the monthly. The increase in prices was caused by the effect of the COVID-19 restrictions across the world, which disrupted supply chains, leading to high transport costs, a rapid rise in demand for fuel, raw materials, and other goods when the economies globally were open. Not forgetting the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has exacerbated those challenges. The shilling also faced pressure against the dollar, especially from April to June, on account of rising interest rates in advanced economies as they are fighting their own inflation there. In America, in Europe, they have increased interest rates. And this has put pressure on our shilling. But also there are disruptions in the trade, which is caused by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. However, Bank of Uganda has taken appropriate measures to avoid volatile fluctuation, and as a result, the shilling has remained relatively stable despite the slight increase in the exchange rate. It's not very volatile. Despite the above challenges, the prospects for the economy for this year are positive. And the economy is expected to grow at 6.5% on account of the following: the full opening of all sectors, increased production and exports, import substitution strategy we adopted, commercialization of oil and gas, support to private sector, improved access to affordable credit for businesses, implementation of the parish development model, and digitization of the economy. The sentiments for recovery have been expressed by the private sector through a number of surveys in which they have reported, and these include the Purchaser Manager Index, the Composite Index for Economic Activity, as well as the Business Tendency Index. All of them indicate positive prospects. Alignment of fiscal to monetary policy. The current status, which I explained, as well as the outlook on inflation, as reported by the Bank of Uganda in its June 2022 monetary policy statement, emphasizes the need to coordinate our fiscal policy with the monetary policy so that we can stabilize the inflation. This requires effective communication as well as management of the actions on both sides. That's on our side as fiscal policy managers, and on the side of Bank of Uganda as monetary policy managers. Therefore, to mitigate the current inflationary trend, the government is mindful of its aggregate level of spending, and this partly underpins the cash limits that we have issued this quarter. And that brings me to the budget for this quarter, which we have released. I will start with the approved budget. The total approved budget for financial year 2022-23 is 48.13 trillion shillings, and it is detailed as follows: wage 6.375 trillion, non-wage 11.11 trillion shillings, Government of Uganda development budget 7.85 trillion shillings, external financing on the side of development 6.7 trillion shillings, debt and treasury operations 15.17 trillion shillings, arrears 661.97 billion shillings, local revenue 238.52 billion shillings. And that's what gives us the total of 48.13 billion shillings. These are the highlights for the first quarter release for this financial year. In line with the Ministry's commitment to release funds before the 10th day of the first month of the quarter, I issued the Quarter 1 expenditure limits on 8th July 2022 to ensure timely execution of government programs. The expenditure limits for Q1 were derived based on the work plans and procurement plans of the ministries, departments, agencies, as well as local governments, and the available resources for Q1. The Quarter 1 release of Government of Uganda funds, excluding debt, amounts to 4.676 trillion shillings. That's what we've released for Quarter 1. 4,676 billion shillings. That is net of debt. The highlights of this release as follows. Wage, we have released 1.6 trillion shillings. I will read the figure in full. 1,603.6 billion shillings. This is against a projection we thought we were going to release 1,595.8 billion shillings. In other words, we have released more money for wage than what we had projected. Non-wage, we have released 1,813.6 billion shillings, in short 1.8 trillion shillings roughly, against a projection for this quarter of 3.4 trillion. So we have released more or less half of what we had projected we would release. I'll explain the reasons later. Development, we have released 596.738 billion shillings against a projection of 2.38 trillion shillings. Arrears, we have released all of them, 661.947 billion shillings. The wage, that is 1,603.6 billion shillings, and pension and gratuity of 230 billion have been fully provided for this quarter. So nobody in Uganda should not get their wage or pension or gratuity. It's fully provided for. The budget areas, that's the budget for arrears, 662 billion has been fully released, as I've emphasized. Security agencies, that is Defense, External Security Organization, ESO, and Internal Security Organization, ISO, have been provided with a total of 721 billion. About 47.6 billion has been provided for judiciary. 175 billion has been provided to Parliament. The recurrent release for health institutions, that is 160 billion, has been fully prioritized and released. 96 billion has been provided for recurrent expenditure for local governments. 98 billion has been provided for universities. 13 billion has been provided for agricultural institutions. We have not made a release for capital expenditure as had been prioritized in quarter 1, and we are going to prioritize it in quarter 2, with the exception of wage for contract staff salaries, Ministry of Defense, Development, State House, and Ministry of Works, which we have given about 26 billion. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize the following. The Q1 release has been constrained by the state of the economy, especially the effort of government to coordinate its fiscal policy with the monetary policy to arrest the inflation. I want to tell you we are fully aligned and coordinated with the Bank of Uganda to ensure that the level of liquidity out there is managed to reduce the rate at which prices of goods and services has been rising. We have to first arrest the inflation and we get back to our normal lives. Number two, accounting officers are requested, and I emphasize, to ensure that they pay wages, salaries, pensions, and gratuity by the 28th of every month. Number three, there should be a display of the payrolls for salaries and monthly pension from government institutions in notice boards every month to ensure transparency. Number four, accounting officers must prioritize payment of service providers on time and clearance of domestic arrears to avoid further accumulation of arrears and penalties. As you've heard, I provided all of the money for arrears, despite the tight situation in which you have to operate. Mindful of the need to support those small businesses which supply to get their money on time. No recruitment, no recruitment should be done without clearance from Ministry of Public Service after ascertaining availability of adequate wage from this ministry. Accounting officers are required to ensure that every promotion and redeployment of staff made to a different cost center is backed up by adequate wage provision. This tendency of moving people around, redeploying them, promoting them without wage should stop. All government operations this financial year will underpin the following: fiscal discipline, ensuring that government spends money to those most critical things as a first call on the budget. Number two, budget credibility, ensuring that we keep our budget as we planned it over the year, appropriated it, so that it can perform as expected. Commitment to service delivery, ensuring that services to Ugandans are delivered, because they are the ones who spend this money, or who pay this money that we spend as government. And finally, timely project execution. There is no more room for project extensions. Projects should perform according to the timelines and the budget, within the budget. This ministry will not entertain, ladies and gentlemen, supplementary expenditures this financial year that are not for security or industrial policy purposes, themselves accommodated within the 3% of the appropriated budget as provided for in the law. Finally, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development remains committed to the timely release of funds, and all stakeholders are requested to take note of the information printed in the media and also put on our website, the budget website, www.budget.finance.go.ug. I repeat, our budget website is www.budget.finance.go.ug. I thank you very much for listening.
First of all, congratulate you on your first budget, which you prepared. We participated in all of it, and now it's time for execution. So this is now when the rubber hits the road. I have three main issues, PSSD for your information. One is on the financing for the parish development model. I think this is the first press conference where even the word parish development model has not been mentioned. But I think for us, the big survey we are carrying out is showing that we are actually not prepared. One is that parish chiefs, most parish chiefs do not have appointment letters, and the district chief administrative officer, what they are doing is to allocate more than one parish to the parish chief. We find that is inconsistent. Number two is that the parish development committees are not functional. It is our prayer, PSSP, that before you send any coin to a parish, that one must have a parish chief with an appointment letter. And number two is that the parish development committee must be functional. Less than that, please do not send money for the parish development program. The second item, PSST, is limited adherence to public finance management rules and regulations. We are cognizant of your letter dated 7th of July, where you suspended accounting of the government level. A move we fully support and appreciate. But PSST, we know this is just not about submitting budgets. We know it is also about submitting progress reports on a quarterly basis. We know that even the financial year is ending, we know a number of them are likely even not to submit their financials for the end of the year. We think it's high time that more work is done for errant accounting officers who do not follow these public finance management regulations, especially even on areas. As we try to clear them, more accounting officers are creating them. We need even more equipping measure on that. Non-functionality of the Small Business Recovery Fund, which you launched last financial year. As of now, we don't know its performance. We don't know who has benefited. Even the small businesses, we don't know even where to find it. We would like to know whether there are any reforms to increase its visibility, increase its accessibility, so that's one of the enterprises can also be able to get it. Finally, PSSP is that hunger is across the country, in northern Uganda. If this budget that we are going to execute cannot stop us from dying of hunger, then we shall not have a budget. We would like you, please enforce, especially financing for agriculture, to ensure that if you cannot fund and stop hunger in this country, then probably there is not much we should be giving the agriculture ministry money for. Otherwise, we look forward to support you in executing this budget and providing you information to ensure that the budget is executed in a transparent manner. I thank you.
It is important that in times like this one, we need strong leadership, and I think strong leadership is being exhibited here. If we don't have strong leadership, we may not navigate through hard times, and there's need for families. PSST and colleagues allow me to comment on a few areas that I think that as we execute this budget need to be emphasized. One is the sanctioning of the accounting officers. At a court and fraternity we support the whole idea that people their commitments, and I think we had even advised that it is important to have sanctions but also rewards. What we note here are the rewards, because you see when you sanction, when you punish and you don't reward, it doesn't motivate. Because here it's just work hard. It's that when people back on tension, it can also keep the morale. So I think the sanctions should also, so the carrot and stick approach should be. So what should follow now next PS is rewards for those who have done well. But also we realized that there wasn't proper coordination between key ministries, finance and local government. And so government must be seen to work as one. So when we hear complaints from the Minister of Local Government, then we don't want to be torn between two loyalties that can be confusing. So I think proper coordination is important and harmony, because the target is one. The second issue, PS and colleagues, has to do with the education. There's a strong commitment to invest in human capital, and this is very, very, very important. But UPE is not doing well down there, and I remember the president's speech gave us the figure of 6.1. I think that should be investigated very well. If we have 6.1 dropout, then we will not be able to make it through these turbulent times, because investment in education is an investment in human capital, and it's very, very critical that actually we invest significantly and our people finish. And because of this economic crisis, we suspect that actually more pupils and more students are likely actually to drop out. As you can see, there is hunger. Next time the school fees actually is likely to be hiked by schools, and so I don't know. I think the ministry and the government should plan for that. Keep the children, keep the students in schools, but also get good quality education, which we rely on as a country, because the deficit in that is very, very costly. The other one is the increasing cost of living. I hope that your ears are on the ground. Commodity prices continue to increase, persistent fuel prices, and most people are likely actually to sleep in poverty with this rising costs. I think we also need some interventions on the rising prices and the likelihood that people may slip back into poverty. It was good to hear that the economy is likely to grow at 6.5, which is good, but we need to be careful, because with drought, and actually that brings me to the point of climate change and food insecurity. It is real, and because of the war in Ukraine, countries that had transited to green, especially in Europe, they have gone back to coal. The US has gone back to coal. And so the global warming is now, and you see now the heat wave. Now we have seen fire bursting out in Spain and all over Europe, and it will have an impact on us. So here in Uganda, we don't see a consistent investment for climate change adaptation and mitigation. And when I PS, I was told that there is money which you have a key, climate fund. Why don't you release that money to the civil society and other people to use that money? I'm appealing to you. Someone told me you need to talk to the PS that there is money, it's climate fund money, and I think we need to invest. If you visited Imbara, Accord and the Ministry of Water and Environment has been working with 11 districts that touch, that the riverines touch from all the way from Rengo up to Weju. The river is disappearing. There is a lot of sand mining, brick making. You know, the young people are dropping out of school and the brick making, there is sand mining, and there are also people who benefit, big people. And the river is drying up. And that river is a lifeline to Mbarara City, which was launched last year. So we would request you, PS, to unlock that money, if it is there, but also seriously invest in the restoration of the rivers that have disappeared, including the Marisi, the Koch, and others. The other one, area, PS and team here is the hunger in Karamoja. Actually, based on hunger in the Karamoja sub-region. I don't think it is politics, it is real. We need to do much, and that has to do actually with climate change. If there is going to be a supplementary budget, PS, I think we need to see in the climate change adaptation and mitigation, including damming. You know, I come from Mbarara, Ankole. In the 50s and 60s, the king of Ankole took a decision to dam most of Mbarara Bay, the greater Mbarara. Today, those dams are like lakes. They are big and they change the climate. So I think as part of climate change, dams, strategic dams, will help to change the climate. The final point has to do with debt management. And yesterday we saw in the papers the Minister of Finance threatening the citizens that he said that if you don't want us to borrow, then be ready for increased taxes. Now the two are not, both situations are not good. But I think the whole, I think statistics have also shown that most countries in the developing world are likely to increase and to actually be choking on the debt. And so we would want you to comment on how actually the policy on debt management or debt governance in this country, because ultimately it's the citizens that pay. But otherwise, we want to thank you and the team for the transparency and accountability with which you are leading this discussion.
Thank you for the feedback. You will give us the feedback from out there to enable us to improve. Julius, you are saying we are not prepared for the video. Now going to control letters for parish chiefs, and I want to assure you that currently the entire cabinet is focused on the implementation of the video. You saw the honorable ministers, right from the Prime Minister to the lowest ranked state minister. They were all out to check on the prior actions and the progress we are making. And they are right now reporting back in a very structured way on what they found in the field and to inform decisions. In other words, I want to assure you that the government is basing now on very well informed decisions to implement the parish development model, because our anchor intervention this financial year, beginning this financial year, to achieve our ultimate goal of socio-economic transformation. So don't worry about sending money to unprepared people. We are going to send it to the prepared people, because the entire government is focused on that. On the sanctioning of accounting officers, beyond budget submission to budget execution, to accountability, and so on, we shall not relent on this. We are going to ensure that those circulars we issue are enforced to the latter in terms of what the accounting officers are required. I'm currently meeting my colleagues, the accounting officers in the government. I've met the accounting officers from the central government. This week, I'm going to meet the accounting officers for the governments to ensure that what we agree on is what we deliver as a team. On the Small Business Recovery Fund, the performance, I will ask the Bank of Uganda to issue a report in the medium term, or maybe next week, to ensure that the entire country knows fully where we are. But also, most importantly, to ensure that all Ugandans are aware how to get this money and where to get it, what are the requirements, which we have been trying our level best, but I think we still have some work to do to support these small businesses to recover. Then the hunger issue, the food shortage. I want to assure you that as government, we are focused on this. We have had several interactions internally, and they are going to inform the movement of resources from the treasury to the spending institutions, especially those which are aligned to industrialization program, because that's good. I don't want to anymore to say Minister of Agriculture for food. No, it's a combination of a number of entities in the government as well as private sector. And we are now operating under the program of agro-industrialization. And we are meeting, and very soon you will see a number of activities done. But for now, the emergence, as you know, emergencies are dealt with, also using the emergence funding. This one, we are already doing it, coordinated by the Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Prime Minister. Already some food has been dispatched there, and we are also intervening to send more food to those food stressed areas, beginning with Karamoja. But as you know, the sustainable way of doing it is to increase food production, food storage, and also food distribution using the market system, as opposed to always dealing with the emergencies. Dr. Arthur, on the rewards side, because this is the second time you are raising this. The first time I had agreed with you that let me be on the side of the stick, be on the side of the carrot, but you encouraged me to also look at the carrot side. So we are going to reward the best performing institutions, the best performing accounting officers as well. We were supposed to reward them during the budget month, but a number of things will not allow us, but we're going to arrange and announce to the entire country those institutions and their accounting officers who are performing very those which are offering the best service. We are going to reward them, so don't worry about that. And it's going to be the norm every year. We shall be doing that. And I want to say it is the civil society and private sector that we gave the mandate of selecting these best performing institutions. So they will be announcing the methodology. It is very open, the criteria we use to select them, and those best performing ones, and we shall reward them. Coordination between ourselves, within government, you are absolutely right, and we are improving on the coordination despite a few challenges. I want to assure you that we are very well coordinated. That's why you see now coordinating fully the fiscal policy with the monetary policy. Coordination is paramount if you want to achieve what you want to achieve. Otherwise, we can be counterproductive to one another. I'm sure you are raising the coordination of local government and my ministry because of the recent headlines I've been seeing flying around. For us, we implement our responsibilities according to the law, and we await the results out of that. I want to inform you that the results have been good. Now, the local government responded very well, and it's now only about 10 out of the 110 local governments that have not submitted fully their budgets, but also we are supporting them to ensure that they submit. Some of them, it's a capacity issue, which we also do. So there is no need for any worry with that. On UPD performance, we are definitely, as I told you at the beginning here, not today, but of our budget strategy, we wanted to focus more on the quality of the service that we deliver. It's particularly in the human capital development program, because that's where the challenge now has been. And we are investing more now in improvement of the delivery mechanisms. That's why we are investing in automation of all the activities related to supervision and inspection of schools, to ensure that learners keep in school and they are learning. Those who are supposed to teach them are teaching. So we have the TELA, the EMIS, those various programs we have been telling you that we are developing, and we are going to keep the money as well as our efforts where we are keeping the kids in schools and the teachers teaching. Increasing this increasing cost of living, the food, the fuel, and so on. As we have been telling you, as a ministry, we rely mainly on the realities on the ground. The reality is the global economy has a shortfall of fuel, and fuel prices have increased across the world. We have a reality on the ground that a number of intermediate goods that we use to manufacture our other items like laundry, soap, and so on, they are facing challenges, logistical challenges to move around. And this has increased the cost. But also told you that a number of these shocks are temporary, are going to go away. And as government, our main intervention is to ensure that we don't allow the inflation to go out of hand. How does inflation go out of hand? If you facilitate people to have more money to buy things which are in a short supply. People are parking the cars to fill full tank, but the fuel cannot be enough. So you subsidize them to demand fuel which is not there. That's when you can get a problem, inflation getting out of hand. So the best way is to actually ensure that the demand matches the supply by reducing the amount of money which people have to spend on these things. That is how economics works. And that's what we are doing. And it's the best way to approach this. And then within no time you will see, we shall get around the corner, and once the supply, because you know supply liquidities take time to self-correct, but they eventually self-correct. Why? Because as prices rise, many people look for ways of supplying that item. This supply has gone up in order to take advantage. And as a result, eventually the supply rises and meets the high demand, and the prices settle down. So the cost of living, fine, it is high now, but it's going to reduce in the medium term. And as government, we are intervening in those areas which we feel are practical areas to intervene and sustainable. Number one, by supporting the households to grow more food. That's fundamental. Number two, by using policy to ensure that we don't allow redundant money in the hands of people who would cause more inflation. That's why we are mindful of that, and we are reducing the amount of liquidity so that the demand meets the supply and prices settle, find their level. This climate financing you are talking about, you want me to unlock the money? I'll unlock the money if it is there. No problem about that. We are going to unlock it if it is there. So don't worry about that. I'll tell my director responsible for debt to ensure that he gives me the key to unlock this climate financing. And we have been trying to do that over time. The hunger in Karamoja, I've talked about it. The Prime Minister's office is intervening as an emergency, but going forward, we are investing more in food production, including that particular area. On debt management, I want to assure you that number one, our debt is sustainable. We have been borrowing in a sustainable manner to ensure that we are able to pay our debt. That's number one. I know sometimes we get obsessed with debt GDP ratio, this, that. First of all, that's a very poor measure of debt. GDP does not belong to government. So for us, our main measure which we use is the debt revenue ratio. How much revenue are we spending on repaying debt? We are monitoring that closely to ensure that we can pay our debt without constraining the local market and also without causing more challenges in the government's ability to deliver. And I want to assure you that for us, debt always has the first call on the budget. And as you can see, we have no problem of finding the money to pay and also to keep running our affairs. Setumba, on supporting the recovery, Setumba, we have spoken our voices, of course, on what we are doing as government, and we are continuing with those very interventions. We have put money in UDB. We have put money in the small business recovery fund. We have put money in the microfinance support center. We are supporting the households through the parish development model. We are putting in place a tax policy which is supportive of recovery, not introducing the new taxes or raising the rates so that businesses can ride on that recovery. We have spoken and spoken about these things, and in the same script I'll read it from to give you that answer. So we are supporting them and we are continuing with that. Perhaps you are wondering the timing now that there is inflation. Are we continuing with that? Yes, we are continuing with it because money going to private sector to support production is actually money helping you to fight inflation. So that one we are continuing to support the private sector to recover so that they can supply more goods and be able to arrest this challenge we are having currently. How much have we cut on the expenditure? This one I will ask the director budget to give you the number because I read through what we are releasing, and I think we have it here. Vis-a-vis what we have projected. So we'll give you the amount which we have cut. And you were wondering whether this is a saving or we are not going to borrow, stuff like that. I'm saying this is a very strategic fiscal policy intervention. Second, when you have inflation, the best way to fight it is not by having people getting more money to buy goods which are not there. The best way to fight it is to actually get less money in circulation so that the same money chasing the goods which are in very short supply is equivalent to the goods. That's the only way you can arrest the inflation. Some people, I see them on social media, you see now the traffic has reduced. That's what it should happen during inflation. When you see traffic jams during inflation, you are in trouble. You're going to cause more inflation in the economy. So we're on the right track. But at the same time, we are going to recover within no time, and then by Q2, come back here, we shall be talking different language now. I'll be front-loading people to go and develop the economy of Uganda. The non-wage also will tell you what constitutes the non-wage, but these are the things I partly mentioned: the fuel, government people purchasing fuel to drop everybody. Now they should drop themselves more. Less fuel means you are going to be very economical. Travel, workshops, so on. Those are the non-wage items. Of course, among others, like paying rent and so on. You are asking whether the $45.7 billion of GDP was the outtime or projection. This was the outtime. The GDP as at the end of June. UBC, automation, and cutting off government expenditure. You are saying this is likely to destroy jobs. By the way, research will surprise you that as economies, global economy has continued to automate, it has created more opportunities for the job creators and job workers. So we are having in place a number of job creation interventions which are anchored in this budget strategy, as I've already indicated. As you know, we are pursuing structural change. And when you are pursuing structural change, you invest more in efforts which are going to industrialize the economy. Industrialization comes with the job creation, agro-business, which we are supporting. Our strategy is anchored on export promotion so that you can get more market for the goods produced. Once farms get more market and they sell more, they are likely to open up more units and they employ more people. So at the macro level, we are going to actually be tracking these jobs. In the coming few quarters, I will be reading for you here the number of jobs we've created and the number of jobs the economy has destroyed. We have already assigned the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to track this, and it's good that you are raising it. It will give us more focus. Martin Luther, delaying capital expenditure. You are worried that this might actually affect our growth target of the 6.5. This is not capital expenditure delayed for the financial year. It is delayed for a quarter to fight inflation. There is a quarter 2, there is a quarter 3, there is a quarter 4. We shall front load these institutions and they create more opportunities. And we shall be very optimistic we shall hit these targets. The cautious expenditure, you are asking whom are we protecting, isn't it? We are protecting the poor. The poor are the ones who are disproportionately affected by high inflation. Whenever you reduce inflation, you have actually fought poverty. And in that case, whenever the cost of living rises so fast, it is the poor that are affected disproportionately. Some people now can afford to still fill their tanks with the fuel and move around. They can afford to eat any type of food they want, but the poor will be affected when a kilo of wheat goes up or a kilo of cassava. I don't know whether now we weigh cassava. But if that basin of cassava I saw on the roadside, the price goes up, it's the poor who's going to be affected most. So whenever we are fighting inflation, we're actually fighting for the poor. Climate financing, same question, which Arthur, I told him that funding, I'll ask the debt people to give you the numbers and the prospects. On supplemental expenditure, Martin Luther, I can see you are doubting us. We are saying we don't want supplemental expenditure. It distorts the budget. It affects the economic performance. And you are right. Already a number of institutions have written to me requesting for supplemental expenditure. But my technical people here don't even know that they have written to me. Because I have not disbursed, I have not sent these letters to them. I've opened a small space in my office where I keep these letters. So, this accounting office, wherever you are, don't waste paper and ink typing supplementary requests. I will not process them, except those I've mentioned, which were actually anticipated by the law. Who are the most affected by the global downturn? That goes without saying, the poor.
We have only released 18.9 of that budget. You can call it 19.
Okay, thank you. By the way, as a minister, we also have a newsletter in which I usually, my minister, all these technical people and other people, I usually, we state our policy direction. I commend we recommend that you read that newsletter quite regularly as the media, whenever you can't find some of us. A lot of our messages are there. And I think, I don't know whether they have some copies. They should give you a copy of the latest version. I thank you.